This is the Chris Project, where we discuss mental wellness, self-awareness, and mindset with entrepreneurs and experts. Set your perceived ideas and biases aside, and let's go on our journey for yourself, for your family, for the world.
Welcome to another episode of The Chris Project. I am your host, Christian Brim. Joining me today is Nick Garofalo. I said it correctly before. Garofalo, with Open-Handed Wealth. Nick, welcome to the show.
I am honored to be here, Christian. Thanks for having me.
We're not going to edit that mistake out, by the way.
We even practiced ahead of time.
Yeah, I know. This is raw.
Listen, if all of us were blessed with a last name like Brim, we wouldn't have this. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But some of us have a greater weight to bear.
I guess you could mispronounce Brim. But it'd be hard. Brime, maybe?
Gifting.
Yeah. Brim. English, I thank God that I did not have to learn English as a second language because it makes no sense.
Amen.
It makes no sense. So, Nick, tell us about, I love the name, Open-Hand Wealth. How'd you come up with a name like that?
So, naming a company is kind of hard, and I'm the type to get hung up in details that really don't matter. So, I spent way too long trying to pick a name, going back and forth, and it was actually came from a song my wife found one night. But I think it really embodies how should I say this? The only way to have a healthy relationship with money.
I love that. Okay, so you help anybody with financial planning, or is your business geared towards business owners?
So yes and no. I will help anyone that I think I can help where I can deliver value far in excess of what I'm charging. That's kind of my prereq. Now, I have a couple non-business owner clients, but not many. Most of my clients do own a business, and that's mainly because there's so many more fun things you can do when you own your own business. You have so much more control over your income, over your expenses and taxes and all that kind of stuff that you just don't have if you're what I'll call more like a traditional financial planning
wage
client.
earner.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's certainly lots of fun you can do there, and great, but just especially my experience too. So I grew up the son of an entrepreneur. My dad started two businesses, and I worked for him at his second business with my mom, my brother, my sister, my sister-in-law. So it was a family operation. And so I have a lot of fondness and nostalgia, but also just a love and a passion for small businesses and helping them to thrive and grow. And I see so many people hit the same point that my dad hit, which is like, a lot of entrepreneurs can get to the $1 million mark, the $1 million sales mark. It may come at costs, right? Great personal costs, but a lot of folks can grind to that point, and then to get from 1 to 2 is so different. It takes a very different skill level, different personality type, and then to get from 2 to 5 is that's a whole other kind of person. Sometimes it's not common that you find one person that can start a company and get it all the way through. But even if you do, that person is still going to have financial headaches, questions, stresses, pain points, because you start to get out of the business of doing the thing that you got into business to do, say cutting grass, making wedding cakes, taking pictures, do whatever, and you're getting into the business of business.
Yes.
Accounting and books.
Which nobody has any experience with.
No. And so I loved getting to sit I was basically CFO for my dad's company, but then also we were acquired and I was put over 3 different companies. It was a super fun, strategic, dynamic kind of role. And I thought, man, I bet I could help a lot of people doing this because the problems are very similar. So
did your dad have financial difficulties at that level, or was it? What was the impetus that I could do this? I could solve this problem. I could do this better. What?
Well, maybe I should tell you what it was that I thought I could help solve.
Okay.
There's just a general sense of I don't know what I don't know here.
Mm-hmm.
I find clients usually fall into one of two buckets when it comes specifically to reading and interpreting financial statements.
Mm-hmm.
There are those that have no idea what they mean. but they get the report from their accountant and they're like, I don't know, I guess that number right there, net income, is positive. It's black. That's a good thing, right?
Right.
And not to dumb it down that much. I mean, I think generally when you look at your own financials, you can kind of piece together what's going on. But then there are the other people that say, well, no, I understand it and I know how to read it and it makes sense, but I don't really know what to do with it. I don't know what strategically I can how do I use this as a building block in my business strategy or my planning goals? How do I actually take this and go do something with it? How am I trending or forecasting or interpreting the data beyond just the face value?
So that was where your father was like he understood the mechanics of the business and that he was making money, but
right,
very limited understanding of what to do with that information. Beyond that.
My dad was like the quintessential bank balance business owner. It's like there's money in the bank, great.
It's good.
There's no money in the bank, bad. And like he would self-deprecate all the time and talk about like he's not a numbers guy. He doesn't know, he's not like one of those accountant kind of people. And like that aside, because I think there are a lot of people who are very financially literate. There's been a huge focus on financial literacy for the last 10 years, and I think there's still so much more work to be done. But a lot of people now, good gracious, you can just YouTube and learn just about anything these days, right? So like there's a lot better literacy.
I'm working on brain surgery right now, so on YouTube, following videos. I'm looking for my first patient.
Your first patient?
Yes.
Okay, that does highlight the importance of certainly having and hiring a skilled professional.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, with my dad, I saw they're just, again, like that bank balance accounting he got through the grind of the first few years and got $2 million in revenue. But then to get to the next level of actually establishing a business with like a forward-looking projection and looking for like, what's going well, what's not within the business, operational inefficiencies, things like that, rising and falling stars in your client base, stuff like that was a lot trickier and required a bit of a deeper look.
And so I asked that question because like my story, we also had a family business. We were in the transportation business in the oil and gas space back in the 70s and 80s in Oklahoma. And it was one of those deals where nobody in my family had any financial acumen, and they had really bad values around money. And
the deadly combination.
Yeah, and ended up going bankrupt whenever the oil, as they say, crashed in mid-'80s. And so that impact on me was my origin story of why I do what I do, because I didn't want other families to experience what my family did. And the reality was, it wasn't the loss of the things that impacted me. It was because when when everybody went bankrupt, they scattered. We all lived in a small town. We were, living life together. My cousins were just like my brothers. I mean, like it was this intimate relationship, and then it was gone. And that was my motivation. So it's interesting that it doesn't sound like there was a similar bad story in yours, but you still saw the need.
Yeah. I definitely saw the need. I saw places where, oh man, if there had just been somebody with some financial strategy, even just, honestly, Christian too, it's just like a second set of eyes to say like, no, you're doing great. You're right on track. This is good.
Yeah.
If you have no one telling you that, then you have no permission to stop worrying about it.
True. Yes.
And that sucks the energy and the wind out of the rest of your business, right? Because if you're so focused, again, like I was saying, if your business of oil and gas transportation has grown to the point that now you have to become better at the business of business, that's not what got you into business in the first place, right? You're not
Correct.
An accountant. You're not an HR person. You're not a small business operator. That's not what you do to make money. You're really good at, oil and gas transportation. Like I said, making wedding cakes or taking pictures.
Right.
selling goods and services. That's your thing. So one of my clients told me, he was like, I was finally able to like take off the pack from my shoulders of financial and account, tax, finance related stuff, put that on somebody else, on me, someone who was more used to carrying that burden, and get back up to what made me successful in the first place. And I was like, that is awesome. Can I use that? So he's now a testimonial on my website. But yeah, I mean, it's just like the problem, the need is there. And I want to help free people up to get back to what made them successful.
Yeah, because what you said, and this is true. I've experienced it. I've seen it in my colleagues. What got you from point A to point B will not get you to point C as an entrepreneur. My friend Drew Goodmanson calls those things entrepreneurial inflection points. And it's, businesses grow until they plateau, and the plateau usually is the limitation of the owner. It's not market conditions, it's not customers, it's not employees. It's the owner has reached their limit of being able to manage, grow the business. And that certainly was the case with me. And, when we hit those inflection points, we got a choice to make. We can, I think the first thing is you have to make a decision like, are you going to learn what you need to do, or are you going to get out of the way? Now, I'm more of the stubborn type that wants to learn it myself, although I'm getting better, because it's much more efficient to have someone else learn that already knows those skills, enjoys those skills, to come in and do those things. But it's not even just the skills; it's the mindset. It's the beliefs, the self-limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. It's all the baggage that we bring in around money. So in my case, we didn't have, I've had a lot of entrepreneurs talk about like they grew up in a scarcity household, and like everything was always about, well, we can't do that because we can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs pursue entrepreneurship to overcome that and have financial freedom.
To solve that problem.
Right. I had the exact opposite problem. We never talked about money because it was always there. And my family did real stupid shit, like buy helicopters and planes and limousines, and it was insane. Wow. But so I never had a scarcity mindset. I had the exact opposite problem. The way it manifested in my business was, well, there'll always be money. We'll always figure out a way to make more money, right? Until we didn't. And it's like, I did not have any financial discipline myself of, and probably some poor impulse control too. But like the idea that you can't just spend money whenever you want it without, having some accountability around it. And this is coming from a financial professional. I know better. Like it's not like I don't know the problem. But I think that's the problem, is that, there's a skill set and you can learn it or you can hire it. But then there's also your beliefs around money and what, habits you learned. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, the business and the business success is their identity. And if the business is not successful, they're not successful. I find this with men specifically.
Isn't that true with you too, though? I mean, goodness, like yeah.
No, I mean,
so true.
It's and that's not healthy, because you're more than your business, and it's like what's the most important job you have as a person? It is not accumulating wealth. It is not. It does not bring you, it does not bring you happiness. And ultimately, the money itself brings you no fulfillment. I mean, yeah, you can do more things, but that's not why you're here, is to just do things. It's not hedonism. It's not about so in any case, that's my opinion.
Well, and I see this too with business exit planning, right? Because if you've successfully built a business and you've gotten it to a point where it's attracted the attention of other investors or potential buyers, it's profitable enough that you could realistically sell it and live off the proceeds, which that's another problem, right? Because if you're taking, I love to run through this quick math equation. Let's say your business is worth $5 million and you're taking $500,000 a year out of it for income, which that math shouldn't be too crazy,
right?
Well, if you sell it for $5 million, you're going to net 3 after taxes. On a 4% withdrawal rate, that's about $120,000 a year of income, and you're accustomed to living on $500,000,
right?
So I love helping people just think through that future train wreck. How do we prepare for that?
Well, and that's why most businesses don't sell, because they're worth more. They
can't afford to?
Exactly. Yeah. They're worth more to the owner than they are on the open market. Absolutely. Which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if you've got a well-run business and it's making you money, and you don't have to sell it, why would you? It's more about getting to that point because, again, I feel like you can't be somebody different in business than you are outside of business. I think men especially like to think they can compartmentalize things, and they do a good job of it. I think our brains are hardwired for it. Like we can laser focus on one thing to the exclusion of everything else, and that's what we need in certain circumstances, hunting or defending or any of those things. But the reality is that you're the same person. I found this out when I started working with a business coach 3 years ago. And for the first 6 months, we talked about my marriage. And what I didn't realize was my problems were the same. They looked different in the business and at home. But what was the problem in me was what was presenting in both places. But I couldn't see that, right? I didn't. They looked different. They sound different. They felt different.
So what did you do? How'd you work through that with your coach?
I did a lot of work.
What did that look like?
I did a lot of work, and it was painful work. And I made the comment that it was the hardest thing I've done. It was harder than starting the business. It was harder than having financial difficulties in the business. It was harder than being married for 32 years. It was harder than raising 3 kids. And I guess that's probably why I avoided it as long as I did, because it sucked. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. Because I'm not the same person, and real change only happens with pain. You can't. This is my experience, in my opinion. If something needs to be fixed, you've got to be willing to do the work, and it doesn't come cheap. Now, maybe a lot of people weren't as screwed up as I was, but
I don't know. I mean, there's something. I was just having a conversation with somebody. It's a conversation I've actually had now, I guess, with 2 or 3 people. It's been a train of thought for me on the topic of getting healthy, on the topic of getting strong, leading yourself first. Mm-hmm. I'm at a phase right now in my business where there's a lot depending on me. I've got a lot of kids. I've got a wonderful, incredible wife whom I love with my whole heart, and I need to be strong for them and to lead myself well for them. And honestly, Christian, I have struggled to do that and to prioritize that as being as important as sitting right here at my desk doing work is as important to go out for a jog, go to, join a gym and go get a good night's rest. Those things are easy to just kind of deprioritize as not maybe as important as being in the business, working here, trying to provide for my family, and then going home and helping my wife with the cares and duties of, being a good husband, right? But the reality is that first off, the reality is it's not true. That just like you said, I am one connected person. A friend of mine, Daniel, was just telling me this morning. He's like, I had to reckon with the reality that I'm not some compartmentalized creature with like different personas that I put on.
Different hats. Yeah, I'm just going to change my hat and I'm somebody different.
Exactly. Like, changing the hat doesn't obviously change who you are. And so realizing that a bad night's sleep will affect your anxiety and your stress in your business, which you will then carry into client meetings or prospect meetings or operations or team meetings that you will then, of course, carry home to your wife and children. On the contrary, a good night's rest and getting up and getting a workout, you already started the day ahead because you rested and you've already had a win. You already went to the gym and you lifted something heavy. You feel good. You feel strong. You walk into your day very different. But yes, the reality is that getting to that point of being healthier, being stronger, it costs. It's going to cost something.
You're going to pay one way or the other. That's the reality. There's this false choice that I can avoid it and not pay the cost. You're going to pay the cost. It's just you're going to have to choose when you're going to pay it, and not making a decision, you've made a decision.
What's the cost of not? And what's the cost of not doing it? What's not doing it costing you right now? Yeah.
Exactly.
So
there are no, it's like I told my son the other night. I said there are no free choices. Economics does not allow it. Even if it is opportunity costs of like, if you make a choice to do something, you've said no to all these other things. Like, so there's a cost to every decision.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great investment principle too, right? or business principle just generally. And so
well, that's kind of what I want to dive in. So you work with entrepreneurs with their money. What kind of common symptoms or issues, problems do they present with? If you're a physician, Nick, what do the patients present with?
I'm so laugh about your brain surgery comment.
I'm going to get there. Now, whether I'm going to find a willing patient, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, physician Nick here. So a couple things. Mingling business and personal expenses.
Horrible idea.
And finances. It's so inefficient. Most of the time I see it just as like, treating your business like an ATM because we think that we can just kind of write everything off. Reality is your accountant is probably adding back most of that stuff anyway at the end of the year because they know, or, worst case, if you're actually close potentially to an exit event, you're really muddying the waters of your valuation.
You've depressed your value. Absolutely.
Horribly so. And even though there's that whole, so my job when we were acquired and with a couple other entities was to put together the settlement statement. Right. So when you buy a business, you look at the financials, and at some point on the seller's side, they're going to say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, not all of these expenses on the P&L are, wink, wink, real business expenses. There's obviously some personal stuff in here. And so you do what's called add backs, where you throw back in, well, this and that and the other. These were personal expenses flow down on and that can include even stuff like owner pay, legitimate business expenses that will go away post-acquisition. Assuming you're an S corp or you're not just a partnership or LLC. But anyway, the actual pain of going through that settlement statement process and trying to, because the buyer is going to be like, no, none of it needs to be added back. These are all legitimate business expenses, and then the seller has to prove the true legitimacy of adding back those expenses in to boost the valuation. It's painful. You're losing. There's no way you're going to remember everything. And then if you're being paid on a multiple of EBITDA or of net income or even, whatever, as long as it's not multiple sales, you're costing yourself potentially a 4 to 5x. So for every dollar that you're passing through personally, you're saving 25 cents in taxes, but you're costing yourself $3, $4, $5, $6 in EBIT evaluation. So it can be a very shoot yourself in the foot kind of experience. Yes. And all of that comes from just not having clear bifurcation between business and personal.
And I would 100% agree with all of that. And I think a lot of business owners have trouble from a money standpoint treating their business like a business instead of a piggy bank. I had this conversation with one of my EO forum mates, and he was laboring over this decision to take money out of the company. And we had a conversation around it, and I was like, well, do you not feel like the business would survive? Like, he had the exact opposite problem. Like, he didn't want to take money out of the business because he was afraid that something would happen that they would need that money, right? And as we talked through it, it just made it very clear, like, okay, let me ask you this. If this were not you and your business, and you had bought a share of Apple, and you were a shareholder in it, how would you approach the conversation, right? And it's like, it goes back to that identity thing. It's like they can't see the business as separate from themselves, right? It's them. But as soon as you shift that from it being you, which is an extension of you, which is your personal money in a piggy bank, to a company I invested money into, where you're the investor, it changes the whole paradigm.
Something that actually helps with that can be the entity selection. So obviously, neither one of us are attorneys or accountants, so we're not going to give specific
I am an
advice
accountant,
here.
but I don't like to tell people
Excuse
that.
me.
Yeah. I'm a brain surgeon, Nick.
There we go. Almost inspiring brain surgeon. So, but entity selection can make a huge, it can be a very helpful, process adjustment, because if you're operating, an LLC operating as a sole prop, it feels like a piggy bank, right? But if you're an S corp and now you're on payroll and you're getting a paycheck, and then you get quarterly distributions, that can feel a lot more like a legitimate business. It
sounds like it wouldn't make a difference, but it absolutely does make a difference. Like, if you say, well, I've got to have this much in working capital in the business, and okay, there's money there to take a distribution this quarter. There isn't money in there to take a distribution, and it's not discretionary. It's not like, well, I know the money's not there, but I still need to. I still want it. I'm going to still take it. Well,
right.
Yeah.
So, I also see, and it's funny, even just hearing us talk, banter about this, there's a reluctance, I think, especially for like pre-growth phase businesses, like in the up to maybe 1.5, 2 million in sales phase. There's this reluctance to bring in advisors, outside folks. Sure, you have a CPA and you probably have a bookkeeper, but to bring in true professional advisors, financially minded, CFO, strategy-oriented voices to the table, it can either feel illegitimizing, like, well, wait, I thought I was the one running this business, which I don't. Maybe we can talk about that one in a minute. But I think there's also, again, going back to that scarcity mindset, like, oh, I can't afford coaching or advising or fractionals or whatever because they're too expensive. It's like, okay, well, hold on a second. Going back to the cost question of like, what's it costing you to not have that voice sitting at the table? It could be costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales growth over the next 2, 3, 5 years, millions of dollars potentially, versus, you're going to pay them what, 10 grand a year, 20 grand a year?
Yeah.
Right?
And I've done work as a fractional CFO, and it's fascinating to me because these are people that don't have a CFO. They certainly don't have a full-time one, but their expectation of what a CFO is about, right? They don't even really understand, which is fine because they haven't experienced it. But that person is a part of the leadership team that has the same voice as the head of operations. and the head of HR and whoever else sits at that executive level and makes those decisions. And, I'd have these conversations of like, well, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, well, and this was a particularly bad engagement that I had that I shouldn't have taken. But this guy was in a high growth industry. I mean, it was one of those unicorns. And it was just the timing of it. And, but it had no financial acumen and absolutely no self-control. And he said, "Well, I'm gonna take money out and I'm gonna go buy this piece of property for the business." And I'm like, we're functionally bankrupt as it is. Like on paper, we're bankrupt. You can't do that. I mean, every bit of money we make has got to go back into liquidity and working capital. We're growing too fast, right? And he goes, he cussed me out. He's like, "You write a damn check." And I'm like, "I'm not writing the check." First of all, I wasn't a signer on the check, but I never take that responsibility. But I told the bookkeeper, I said, I'm not ordering the bookkeeper to issue the check. You can go get the check. I'm not going to. And he'd never had any kind of pushback like that. But in a lot of ways, that's what you're looking for in that, is because you want someone that is got the experience and the understanding and the perspective to say, is this a good financial decision? Like,
I've been in the room with.
That's what you're paying for.
Yeah. I've been in the room with conversations like that. And honestly, I think those people may be scared to hire an advisor because they don't want to
be told
control.
No. Right.
Yeah. They don't want to be told no. Obviously, like you said, that was an engagement you shouldn't have taken. Mm-hmm. Those are really difficult, like lose-lose kind of scenarios. He still needed your advice, whether you should have taken that engagement or not. It's a good thing you were there. Hopefully he took it. Or at least reflected back on it, maybe.
No, I was about 9 months into that engagement, and the last words I said to him was, "Lose my number. I don't ever want to hear from you again." But it taught me a lot about myself because I was never that bad, but I had never worked for a true visionary like myself. And I had a perspective that I had never had. And I was repentant. I went back to my team and I said, "I know I've acted this way in the past, and I'm sorry. Like that's not okay." Like, and it's not like I was acting like him, like belittling or berating or anything like that, but just the energy that I brought, it is a lot about ego, and it is a lot about being told no. Like if you want to be a great business owner, you have to be willing to pay people, whether it's an employee or an advisor, you have to pay people to tell you no and hold you accountable. And that was very hard for me to do.
And again, going back, it's like, well, what is it costing you to not have that right now in your business or in your life? The business coach that sits down with you and spends 6 months talking about your marriage, because guess what? Your wife knows the problems you're having in your business because she's known you for 30 years.
Correct.
We could interview her and she would solve your problems in about 2 hours, right?
Correct. If I'd listened to her.
But if we listened, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's so hard to listen to the voice of your wife sometimes, isn't it?
Well, it's funny. My wife and I had one of those conversations this morning, where she has a business that she started, and she was complaining about it, and I'm like, "You sound like a broken record, right? Like, I love you, I support you, I want you to be successful, but I keep hearing the same things out of your mouth." And we have a home church, and Sunday night we just had the conversation about how you can share the gospel with your family, but because they know you so well and they have that experience with you, they discount it. And even Jesus was talking about, a prophet has no honor in his home, or something to that effect. Like, he had to leave town to become the expert, right? I mean, like hanging out in Nazareth, yes, in Nazareth, he was just Jesus, the son of Joseph, right? So there's still that element of it, right? That very human element, like the people that you're closest to, that know you the best, oftentimes can't tell you what you need to hear. And they're the ones we should be listening to, because they're the ones that actually care about us. And are equally yoked with us. Like, my wife doesn't want me to fail, because then she fails. Like, that's not right. But how hard that is sometimes to hear that from the people closest to us.
I'm curious how that conversation ended with you and your wife this morning.
It actually ended up very well. I gave her a big hug, and she said, like, "Oh, you're going to be nice to me?" And I'm like, "I was never not nice. I mean, like, I'm not." I think that's the problem. Having been married 32 years is, because you know each other so well, you skip things. It's like you fill in the gaps, and you're like, and you can't do that. You've got to go through the steps. Because I make a lot of assumptions. She makes a lot of assumptions. Like, I know what he's going to say. I know what she's going to say. And that may be true based on your experience, but even if it is true, that doesn't make you feel very good if people are just like, yeah, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to do. But no, it was a good conversation, and it was a conversation that honestly, 3 years ago, we couldn't have had. Like, that would not have been a conversation. Wouldn't have even gone there. I wouldn't have gone there because I knew it would have ended in conflict, and I was not willing to do that.
What do you credit the most for the change in the last 3 years? It's brought you to the place of being able to have that conversation now.
It's interesting. I think the probably the most interesting thing about the work I've done is my business coach asked me a question very early on when we were talking about the problems in our marriage. And he said, "Well, what do you want?" I was like, "What?" So, like, well, what do you want from your wife? What do you need from your wife? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. I've never thought about it, and I think one of my hangups in that was my understanding of marriage was self-sacrifice. It was like her before me, and although I definitely did not always act that way, that was a core belief. And so, what I wanted was not important. At least in my mind. But what it shifted me to do was it made me clarify, like, really what different behavior did I want from my wife? Like, what's the ideal? Because for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's way too easy in any kind of relationship, marriage being the most obvious. But if things aren't the way you like them or you want them, it's way too easy to focus on the other person and try to change their behavior, affect their behavior, convince them that there's something they need to do different, instead of looking at yourself and changing your behavior. Because at the end of the day, that's all you can do. And so, once he asked that question and I got clarity on what I want, he's like, okay, now go tell your wife that. And I'm like, okay. And so I laid it out. I was like, this is what I need from you. I need to feel heard. I need to feel respected. I need to feel connected, like, intimate. I need these things. And I said, what do you need? And she had the same deer in the headlight looks. Like, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know what
interesting.
Yeah. And over time, she figured out what she needed and was able to communicate that to me. But we're talking about, we got pregnant on our honeymoon, and then we had both of us had our own sets of trauma. And so we come together as injured individuals, and we immediately start a family. And then, 28 years later is like, okay, we got to deal with all of this shit that we didn't deal with, like, is what the reality was. And we had my wife specifically had a lot of external pressures, which I believe God gave us. I mean, I'm not saying that, well, let me rephrase that. I don't think God caused those things to happen. I believe that he allowed us to take something from it that was worthwhile. Beauty from pain, right? Like, sure. it was a shitty situation that she was in, and by proxy, I was in. And it was all health related. And, we had a choice of, okay, are we going to split or are we going to fix? And neither one of us wanted to split, but we had no idea how to fix it. Like, we just, but at the end of the day, the fixing is fixing yourself. I mean, because you can't fix someone else. You just can't. So I can see that it has resonated with you. So tell me what you're thinking.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has very, very deeply. I mean, that's, and we all come from places of pain, right? There's no way to go through life without incurring pain and experiencing it. We accumulate it like Velcro and fuzz, right? Like, it just it finds its way to us and attaches and sticks. My wife has walked through a pretty painful situation for the last two years now, or has it been 3? She has scarring on her vocal cords. Now you have to know about my wife. She has one of the most beautiful voices, truly. And the scarring on her vocal cords is all but taking that away.
Right.
There is no healing for scarred vocal cords.
Right.
And in the process of this long health journey that we've been on, the best that we have found to live with it now is just monthly manual laryngeal therapy, massage, a handful of voice exercises, and that's just kind of part of our life now. Mm-hmm. And her voice therapist said something to her that I'm not sure she realized was as profound as it is, but she said, to work through your scars, you must open them daily.
And she meant that from a physical sense, from actual physical
medical sense. Yeah. But it's deeply true. It's profound. And I think that's gosh, I mean, there's so many ways we could connect this again back to business, but I think the real core, the beautiful truth here that I think is the thread kind of through our whole conversation is, you can't escape yourself, right? You can't escape your past self either. And the 12-year-old you that had, a painful memory or an embarrassing moment or a traumatic experience is still there, needing to be encouraged and cared for deeply and kindly with compassion. And that there is healing available, and that you probably need someone to help you do that, to help you go there, to gather you with Jesus, to go back to that place and find healing and peace there, and to finally be able to let wounds become scars that can then be opened daily for good, for healing, and not just for deeper pain. right? But like, and you said at the start of the conversation, in money and business, there's so much baggage. It's so true, right? And right. Whether, you can't escape your past experiences and accumulated story, no matter how much money you make, no matter how hard you work, no matter how much success you attain. You're still you at the end of the day, laying your head down and looking in the mirror. And until you can find peace with that and find healing, I don't know. Yeah, just to say that until you can find peace, right, and find healing there, those old things will continue to rear their heads.
But, yeah, and what you said about like you're going to pay the price. So you can either go back and do that work and heal and do the work and work through your scars on a daily basis, or it's going to come back and your marriage is going to end, your business is going to fail, your health is going to fail, your relationship with your family and your children is going to fail, because you didn't. Like there's no escaping it.
And if, right, even 28 years in, you're willing to press in and have those hard conversations and then do the work and put in the time and effort to be healthy and to do your best and not to do your best, but like to find that healing and wholeness, right? There is great hope. And there's great peace and relational connectedness that can be found there too.
Yeah, I mean,
I actually really love that story of you and your wife. It made me laugh just thinking about conversations I've had with my wife that have gone similarly.
It's not about for me, I avoided conflict with my wife because I was afraid, because of my trauma, that she would leave me. And so the reality was, for years, I acted out of fear. And if you're acting out of fear in any capacity, you're coming from a negative energy. You're not going to have optimal and usually not even good results. Like, acting out of fear, I believe, is the opposite of acting out of love. I think fear and love are polar opposites. And either you live in fear or you live in love. And you overcome fear with love. You can't overcome fear without love. And I you asked the question, but the reality is, what saved my marriage, what saved me, was only the grace of God. This is me speaking. I can't speak for anybody else. But if it were not for the grace of God, I would not be where I am. I would not have had that healing, and I wouldn't still be married.
Amen.
Listeners, if you've liked what you've heard, please rate the podcast, share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, remember, you are not alone.